Manchester United. Manchester United's legacy is unequaled. From the Busby Babes to Ferguson's dominance, you've built a global brand through success and determination. Few clubs have inspired such a deep emotional connection in fans worldwide. Newcastle United. The Toon Army's loyalty is distinctive. Through thick and thin, Newcastle fans stand tall. St. James Park is one of the most iconic stadiums in England, and your recent resurgence is a testament to your perseverance. Nottingham Forest. European royalty. Forest's history is rich, with back-to-back European Cups setting you apart. Your return to the Premier League has been a long time coming, and the passion of your fan base is as vibrant as ever. Southampton. The Saints Youth Academy is second to none. You've given the world players like Bale and Van Dijk, and your ability to nurture talent is unmatched. St. Mary's is a special place, even when times are tough. Tottenham Hotspur. Tottenham's commitment to flair and attacking football has always made you entertaining. The modern Spurs DNA is about ambition, and your fans' unwavering passion ensures that North London pride always shines bright. West Ham United. The Hammers are as East London as it gets. Your connection to working-class roots, iconic players like Bobby Moore, and moments like that unforgettable European trophy win last year make you one of the league's true gems. Wolverhampton Wanderers. Wolves are fearless. Your attacking style and history of developing great talent make you stand out. Plus, Molyneux's atmosphere on a big night, absolutely electric. Ipswich Town.
Oh,
And
shit,
finally,
that's my. Ooh.
we've got history, we've got
Fucking
ambition,
fell.
and we've got the Tractor Boy spirit. Ipswich fans never stop believing, and the rise back to relevance is just getting started. There you have it. The Premier League isn't just about competition. It's about stories, passion, and the incredible diversity of footballing culture. Here's to every club, every fan, and every reason we love the game. Football is a game of stories, of players who defy logic and leave a lasting impression. Not because they're the best, but because they're unforgettable. Andy Carroll wasn't the most consistent striker, and his injury record could fill a medical textbook. But here's the thing. When he scored, he didn't just score goals. He scored absolute bangers. Towering headers that seemed to defy gravity. Volleys that made jaws drop. And left-footed rockets that looked like they belonged in a different sport entirely. This is the tale of Andy Carroll, a player who could dominate one moment and disappear the next, whose highlights remain etched in football's memory forever. Born in Gateshead, Carroll grew up under the shadow of St. James Park, where dreams of football greatness collided with the fervent passion of Newcastle United fans. By 2006, he had broken into the first team, a raw talent with limitless potential. At 6'4", with a ponytail and a devil-may-care attitude, he embodied the old-school English center forward, a battering ram designed for the chaos of the Premier League. Carroll wasn't just a player. He was a local lad, carrying the hopes of a city on his broad shoulders. The 2009-10 season was Carroll's breakout moment. 17 goals in the championship propelled Newcastle back into the Premier League. His aerial dominance and physicality made him unplayable at times, but he wasn't all brute force. Carroll's left foot packed finesse and power, a deadly combination that made defenders' lives miserable. It wasn't just that he scored goals, it was how he scored them. Headers that felt like guided missiles, strikes from distance that seemed to defy physics, and a presence in the box that demanded attention. January 2011 was a whirlwind for Newcastle fans. Fresh off their Premier League return, their hometown hero was snatched away in one of the most shocking transfers in English football history. Liverpool, desperate to replace Fernando Torres, shelled out a staggering £35 million to bring Carroll to Anfield. It was a move that stunned the footballing world. Suddenly, the boy from Gateshead was the most expensive British footballer in history. The pressure was immense, and the weight of the price tag hung heavy around his neck. At Liverpool, Carroll struggled to find his place. Injuries hampered his progress, and comparisons to the electrifying Luis Suarez, who joined the same month, were unavoidable. But even during a challenging spell, there were flashes of brilliance. His thunderous strike against Manchester City in 2012, a left-footed cannon from 25 yards, was vintage Carroll. For a brief moment, it looked like Carroll might justify his price tag, but for every moment of magic, there were matches where he faded into obscurity. By 2013, Liverpool had moved on, and Carroll was sold to West Ham for half of what they paid. It was a humbling chapter, but one that set the stage for a new opportunity. At West Ham, Carroll found a club that embraced his old-school style. The fans adored his physicality and his ability to unsettle defenses. When he was on the pitch, Carroll was unplayable, capable of winning aerial duels, bullying defenders, and scoring outrageous goals. But therein lay the problem. He was rarely on the pitch. In 2017, Carroll produced one of the greatest goals in Premier League history, a bicycle kick against Crystal Palace that defied gravity and logic. It was a moment of sheer audacity and brilliance, a reminder of why clubs kept taking a chance on him despite his injury record. But those moments were fleeting, and injuries continued to plague his career. Carroll's greatest rival wasn't a defender or a goalkeeper. It was his own body. Knee injuries, ankle problems, and muscle tears haunted him, turning his time on the treatment table into a cruel punchline. But behind the jokes was a player who refused to give up. Carroll's resilience was remarkable. Every comeback was a testament to his love for the game and his determination to keep going. In 2019, Carroll returned to Newcastle United. It wasn't the triumphant return fans might have dreamed of. Carroll was older, slower, and no longer the focal point of the club. But for Newcastle supporters, seeing him back in black and white was enough. It wasn't about what he could do on the pitch anymore. It was about what he represented, a connection to the past, a hometown hero coming home. In June 2020, Andy Carroll agreed to a one-year extension with Newcastle United. On the 3rd of January 2021, Carroll reminded everyone what he could do, scoring his first goal for Newcastle since returning, a classic finish in a 2-1 loss to Leicester City. It wasn't the fairy tale comeback many had hoped for, but it was still a moment of pride for Carroll and the fans who'd always believed in him. After 2 seasons back at St. James Park, Carroll's second spell came to an end in July 2021. But he wasn't done yet. The next chapter of his career would take him to some surprising places, proving once again that while Andy Carroll wasn't the most conventional striker, he was always an intriguing one. In November 2021, Carroll signed a short-term deal with Reading, stepping into the championship as a seasoned veteran. He scored his first goal for the club in a thrilling 3-2 win against Swansea City. But his contract came to an end. So did his short but memorable stint with the Royals. Later that same month, Carroll joined West Bromwich Albion, taking on another short-term challenge. His debut wasn't the stuff of dreams, an away loss to Millwall, but in true Carroll fashion, he found his moment on the 12th of March 2022. He scored a dramatic equalizer in the 85th minute against Huddersfield Town, proving that he still had a knack for clutch goals. Despite his efforts, Carroll parted ways with West Brom at the end of the season. If there's one thing Andy Carroll's career has taught us, it's that you can never predict his next move. And in September 2022, he returned to Reading, this time on a 4-month contract that saw him don the unusual number 2 shirt, a quirky detail for a player who's always been a bit unconventional. By January 2023, he'd signed an extension, committing to the Royals until mid-2024. But even that chapter had an unexpected twist. In August 2023, Carroll activated a release clause, bringing his Reading adventure to a close. Just a day after leaving Reading, Carroll made his next surprise move, joining French League 2 side Amiens, which is odd because I played a whole career on Football Manager with Amiens. Actually, I think Carroll might have been a great addition. It was a brief stint in France, but Carroll wasn't finished with surprises. In September 2024, Carroll took another unexpected turn, joining Championnat National 2, Club Bordeaux. And, in true Carroll fashion, he made an immediate impact, scoring twice on his debut in a dramatic 2-2 draw. Even at this stage of his career, Carroll was proving he could still produce moments of magic, no matter where he played. Andy Carroll's career has been anything but ordinary. From his record-breaking move to Liverpool to his return to Newcastle, from Reading to Amiens and Bordeaux, Carroll has been a journeyman in the truest sense. But through it all, one thing has remained constant: his ability to deliver unforgettable runs. He wasn't the most prolific striker. He wasn't the most consistent. But when Andy Carroll stepped onto the pitch, you couldn't take your eyes off of him. Because whether it was a towering header, a bicycle kick, or a surprise move to France, Andy Carroll has always been one thing: unforgettable. And let's be honest, how many other players can say they've been the mediocre striker who only scored bangers in both the Premier League and League Two? That's a legacy all in its own. In 2008, 55% of clubs in the Premier League were located in the northern part of England. By 2012, that number dropped to 35%. In 2022, it fell again to 30%. And in this present year, just 25% of clubs are located in the north of England. The disappearance of northern clubs is becoming blatantly obvious. And if you look closely, you'll see that only one club in the north is outside of the Merseyside and Greater Manchester area. So what's led to this shocking lack of representation of football clubs in the top flight? To clarify, when we talk about Northern England, we generally mean the areas above the Midlands, regions like Northwest, Yorkshire, the Northeast, and Cumbria. This includes major cities like Manchester, Liverpool, Leeds, Newcastle, and Sheffield. These areas historically served as strongholds of English football, but today their influence on the Premier League has diminished drastically. The history and decline of northern clubs. Historically, the North has been the heart of English football. Legendary clubs like Manchester United, Liverpool, Leeds United, and Newcastle United rose from the industrial hubs of the North. But for every Manchester United, there are clubs like Bradford City, Middlesbrough, and Sheffield Wednesday. Clubs that once competed at the highest level, but now languish in the lower division. The decline of many northern clubs isn't just about poor football results. It's tied to the economic downturns that have affected their communities. Industrial decline in towns like Sheffield, Hull, and Bradford has meant less local wealth to sustain these clubs. As former coach Frank Barlow noted, you look at the northern cities, and a lot of the town centers have gone. Even clubs that achieved brief success, like Wigan Athletic under Dave Whelan, or Blackburn Rovers under Jack Walker, struggled to maintain it. Jack Walker famously bankrolled Blackburn's Premier League title in 1995, but his passing left the club without a sustainable financial model. Wigan similarly relied on Whelan's personal fortune, but found it impossible to compete long-term in a league where financial demands continued to escalate. The rise of Southern clubs. While northern clubs have faced economic struggles, southern clubs like Brentford, Brighton, and Bournemouth have emerged as success stories. These clubs have thrived not by outspending rivals, but through smart management and innovative strategies. Brighton, backed by Tony Bloom, has invested heavily in its infrastructure, including world-class training facilities and a data-driven recruitment model. Brentford, under Matthew Benham, has taken a similar approach, using analytics to unearth undervalued players and build a competitive club without breaking the bank. Bournemouth's rise, meanwhile, has been bolstered by significant investment and steady leadership when Eddie Howe helped them climb their way into the Premier League. These southern clubs' proximity to London also plays a role. London's wealth and international connections attract investors and make it easier to lure players who might be reluctant to move to more remote northern towns. The South has become a hub for opportunity, while many northern regions are still grappling with the economic challenges of post-industrial decline. The investment divide. In modern football, success often comes down to money. Clubs in the Premier League are competing in a global marketplace, where billionaire investors now hold the keys to success. But these investors are disproportionately choosing to invest in southern clubs. Why? One reason is the economic disparity between the North and the South. London and the Southeast clubs are wealthier regions, and clubs there are seen as a safer bet for returns. For example, players may prefer to live near the capital due to its lifestyle and career opportunities beyond football. Wigan's Dave Whelan admitted that his club had to pay over the odds to convince players to come to them, whereas clubs in London or its surrounding areas didn't face the same hurdles. This investment divide exacerbates the challenges faced by northern clubs. While Brighton builds state-of-the-art facilities, many northern clubs struggle with outdated infrastructure. That's not necessarily on the disparity of wealth, but players spend most of their time at these training facilities. It seems even when new owners take over northern clubs, they seem to be making poor decisions that lead to financial mismanagement, as seen with Leeds United and Hull City. The role of infrastructure and mismanagement. Another key factor is infrastructure. Southern clubs like Brighton and Brentford have invested heavily in training facilities, scouting networks, and academy systems. These investments not only improve their current squads, but also ensure long-term sustainability by developing homegrown talent. In contrast, many northern clubs have failed to modernize. Outdated facilities make it harder to attract and develop players. This lack of investment is often compounded by poor ownership decisions. Leeds United, for example, suffered years of financial turmoil and relegations due to reckless spending and unstable leadership. Similarly, Bradford City and Sheffield Wednesday have struggled to find consistent management, leading to their fall from the Premier League. Yorkshire's void. The absence of Yorkshire clubs in the Premier League is perhaps the most striking example of the North's decline. Yorkshire, England's largest county, hasn't had a representative in the top flight since Sheffield United's relegation last season. York City, meanwhile, remain in the 5th tier. If you take a look at one of those maps, there's a massive gap in Yorkshire. It really tells a story, and that story is one of missed opportunities, poor investment, and economic hardship. Yorkshire clubs have passionate fan bases and rich histories, but without significant change, they've been unable to compete with the financial might of Southern clubs. The changing nature of football. Finally, it's important to recognize that the Premier League itself has changed. Clubs are no longer competing just with their local rivals, but with global giants backed by nation-states and billionaires. Manchester City's transformation under Abu Dhabi ownership shows the scale of what's required to dominate in modern football. For smaller clubs, the gap between surviving and thriving in that way has never been wider. Smart management can still make a difference, as Brighton and Brentford have proven. But for many northern clubs, the resources needed to replicate those models simply aren't there. The combination of economic decline, poor infrastructure, and lack of investment has created a perfect storm that shifted the balance of power southward. The question remains then, can the northern clubs reclaim their place in the Premier League? Success stories like Newcastle United, now backed by Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund, suggest that with the right investment, it's possible. But for smaller northern clubs, the path back to the top will require more than just financial backing. It will take smart leadership, community engagement, and a commitment to building for the future. Whether the North can overcome these challenges remains to be seen. But one thing is clear. The Premier League's Southern dominance is no accident. It's the result of decades of economic and footballing changes. Changes that have left the North fighting to keep up. In Italian football, success has a very interesting geography. Of the 95 Serie A titles contested since 1929, Northern clubs have claimed an astounding 84 of them. 3 clubs in particular, Juventus, AC Milan, and Inter Milan, have turned Serie A into their own private competition, collectively winning 75% of all championships. But this isn't just a story about football. It's about how Italy's economic and cultural divide shaped one of football's most fascinating power imbalances. First, let's clarify what we mean by North and South. For this discussion, we're drawing the line just below the Emilia-Romagna region. Everything above that is the North. Below that line, we have the South, regions like Campania, which often feel like outliers in the context of football success. Now, with that distinction in mind, let's dive into why the North has historically dominated Serie A. When football was taking root in Italy during the late 1800s, the country was experiencing a dramatic transformation. The North was rapidly industrializing, with Turin and Milan becoming powerhouses of manufacturing and finance. This wasn't just coincidence. It was the foundation of a sporting dynasty. The numbers tell a compelling story. By 1900, the Milan region alone was producing nearly one-third of Italy's industrial output. Meanwhile, northern Italy's iron grip on the nation's banking system, controlling over 80% of assets, meant that financial power was concentrated firmly in the region. These economic advantages translated directly into football supremacy. Take Juventus, for instance. Their connection to the Agnelli family, founders of Fiat, provided them with resources other teams could only dream of. When Fiat became Europe's largest automobile manufacturer, Juventus gained the financial muscle to attract top talents like Omar Sivori and John Charles in the 1950s, the equivalent of signing Holland and Mbappe today. The North's economic advantage manifested in concrete ways, quite literally. By the 1930s, Milan had the San Siro, Turin had the Stadio Comunale, now Allianz Stadium, and northern clubs were investing in state-of-the-art training facilities. This infrastructure gap created a stark divide that would shape Italian football for generations to come. By 1980, northern clubs had established a clear dominance in facilities, owning nearly two-thirds of all private training centers in Serie A. Their stadiums dwarfed their southern counterparts, with average capacities exceeding southern venues by nearly a third. Perhaps most significantly, northern clubs were investing 3 times as much in youth academies compared to their southern rivals by 1990, creating a pipeline of talent that would sustain their success for decades. This infrastructure advantage created a self-reinforcing cycle. Better facilities attracted better players, which led to more success, generating more revenue for further improvements. The North's industrial base didn't just provide direct investment. It created an ecosystem of corporate support that Southern clubs couldn't match. Today, we see this playing out in dramatic fashion. Juventus' partnership with Jeep, part of the Fiat Group, brings in a staggering €45 million annually, more than some Southern clubs' entire revenue. Inter Milan has long benefited from partnerships with northern industrial giants like Pirelli, while AC Milan's commercial revenue routinely triples that of their southern counterparts. When the Champions League expanded in the 1990s, it amplified northern dominance in ways that would reshape Italian football. Already wealthy northern clubs gained access to a new financial wonderland. The benefit went far beyond the prize money. The enhanced global exposure made northern clubs more attractive to sponsors and players alike, while the additional revenue allowed them to strengthen their squads further, creating a virtually unbreakable cycle of success. Napoli's recent triumph offers a masterclass in how Southern clubs can compete in this northern-dominated landscape. Their success wasn't just about money. It was about intelligence and patience. The club implemented sophisticated data analytics for player recruitment, while maintaining a strict salary structure that kept costs under control. No player earned more than €5 million net annually, but the team still managed to build a championship-winning squad. Their recruitment strategy perfectly exemplified this smart approach. The signing of Kavica Kvaratskhelia for €11.5 million, a player now worth more than 10 times that amount, showed how clever scouting could level the playing field. The development of Victor Osimhen into one of Europe's elite strikers and the shrewd replacement of Kalidou Koulibaly with Kim Min-jae demonstrated that Southern clubs could compete through intelligence rather than spending power. Financially, Napoli's approach was equally impressive and invested heavily in youth development and scouting networks. This wasn't just success, it was sustainable success. The landscape is slowly shifting. Modern football's emphasis on smart management over pure spending power offers hope for Southern clubs. Financial fair play regulations have begun to level the playing field. Driven recruitment and youth development has made it possible for smaller clubs to compete through intelligence rather than financial might. The rise of clubs like Atalanta, though geographically northern, they operate on a southern-style budget. So, small budget. Shows how strategic planning and player development can compete with financial power. Their success provides another template for southern clubs to follow. The North's dominance of Serie A tells us something profound about football. That success on the pitch often reflects broader social and economic realities. But Napoli's triumph reminds us that these patterns aren't destined. The question isn't whether Southern clubs can compete. Napoli has proven they can. The question is whether others can follow their blueprint of intelligent management, strategic recruitment, and patient development. In a sport increasingly